Mom, where are you? I stood in the bridal room with my veil already pinned into place, staring through the cracked door at the two empty chairs in the front row. My mother sighed into the phone like I was interrupting her. Tercy, don't bother us right now. For a second, I thought I'd misheard her. Don't bother you. Mom, I'm getting married in 10 minutes. Are you and Dad coming or not? There was music behind her, glasses clinking, people laughing. Not an emergency. Not a hospital. A celebration. Mom. She hung up. My hand started shaking around the phone. For 4 years, I had sent my parents $2,500 every single month so they could live comfortably. Their phone plan was under my name. One household account was tied to mine. Even the emergency credit card in my mother's wallet belonged to me. That was $30,000 a year before the extras. And on the one day I had asked them for nothing except to show up, they couldn't even give me that. A knock came at the door. Tercy. Daniel stepped inside, already dressed for the ceremony. The second he saw my face, his smile disappeared. They're not coming, I whispered. He looked toward the hallway, then back at me. Did something happen? I don't know. But that wasn't true. Something had happened. I just didn't know what yet. 3 minutes later, the coordinator appeared. We're ready for you. Through the doorway, I could see relatives turning toward those empty front row seats. My aunt leaned toward my cousin and whispered something. The photographer lowered his camera. My mother had promised me 3 weeks earlier. We wouldn't miss our daughter's wedding for anything. Apparently, there was something. Daniel reached for my hand. We can wait. I looked at the chairs again. No. Tercy. I'm not chasing them on my wedding day. That sentence felt strange coming out of my mouth. For years, chasing my parents had practically been my job. When Dad cut back his hours and Mom started telling me they were struggling, I stepped in. At first, it was supposed to be temporary. Then temporary became expected. Every month, without fail, $2,500 left my account and landed in theirs. Whenever I hesitated, Mom reminded me, family takes care of family. So I did. I paid. I adjusted my own plans. I made sure they were comfortable. And now, while I was standing in a wedding dress waiting for them, my mother had told me not to bother her. I slipped my phone into the small bag beside the mirror. Start the music. The coordinator nodded. A moment later, the doors opened. I walked down the aisle without my parents. And as I moved toward Daniel, one question would not leave my mind. If Mom and Dad weren't at my wedding, what exactly were they celebrating instead? The ceremony ended, the applause came, and Daniel kissed me beneath the arch exactly the way we had rehearsed. But when we turned toward our families for photographs, those two empty chairs were still there. The photographer hesitated. Do you want to wait a few minutes for your parents? I opened my mouth, but Daniel answered first. No, we're continuing. His hand settled against my back. You don't owe anybody an explanation today, he said quietly. I nodded, but my mind had already gone somewhere else. 4 years earlier, Mom had called me crying about bills. Your father's hours were cut again, she had said. We're barely keeping up. I had sent them $800 that month. Then $800 became $1,500. A year later, Mom sat across from me at their kitchen table and said, You're doing well now. What's wrong with helping your parents enjoy life a little? That was how $2,500 a month became normal. Not a gift. An expectation. If the transfer landed a day late, Mom noticed. Tercy, did something happen with our money? Dad started calling it exactly that. Our money. And somehow, while I was paying their bills, Evan remained the child they bragged about. Your brother has vision. Evan's going places. Evan just needs the right opportunity. 3 weeks before my wedding, I had looked Mom directly in the eye and asked, "You and Dad are definitely coming, right?" She had actually looked offended. "Tercy, what kind of question is that? Of course we're coming." Back at the reception, I scanned the room again. Then I noticed something I had missed earlier. Evan wasn't there either. I pulled out my phone and called him. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Nothing. That was when my cousin Marissa approached me slowly, holding her phone against her chest. "Tercy." Something in her face made my stomach tighten. "What?" She glanced toward the tables. "Do you already know where they are?" My fingers went cold. "Where who are?" Marissa didn't answer immediately. Instead, she unlocked her phone and opened a social media post uploaded less than an hour earlier. Then she handed it to me. My mother was in the photo. My father was beside her. Evan stood between them. All three were dressed up. All three were somewhere that definitely wasn't my wedding. I enlarged the picture. And there was my mother, smiling with a champagne glass raised in the air while her daughter's reception was happening without her. I stared at the photograph until Marissa quietly said, "There's another post." She swiped. The location tag identified a weekend resort about 90 minutes away. Behind Evan was a banner celebrating the launch of his new business venture. Friends crowded around him. A few people were tagged as potential partners. This wasn't something my parents had been forced to attend. They had chosen it. My Aunt Susan noticed the photograph over my shoulder. "Deanne is there, right now." Apparently, other relatives had already seen the post too. Conversations around the nearest tables started dying down. Susan pulled out her phone. "I'm calling her." "Aunt Susan." "Too late." Mom answered almost immediately. Susan stepped away from the tables. "Diane, where are you?" Mom's voice was loud enough for us to hear. "We're with Evan. Today is important for him." Susan frowned. "More important than your daughter's wedding." There was a pause. Then Mom started defending herself so loudly that Susan switched to speaker. "This could change Evan's whole life," Mom said. "Tercy has Daniel, she'll be fine." I felt Daniel's hand close around mine. Then Dad's voice came through the phone. "It's a wedding, Susan. Ceremony, pictures, dinner. We'll see Tercy another time." I reached for the phone. "Then why did you promise me you were coming?" Silence. "Mom." Her answer came cold and immediate. "Please don't make everything about you." I ended the call. For several seconds, nobody near us spoke. Daniel guided me away from the tables. "What do you want to do?" I looked back at the reception, the people who had actually shown up, and then down at my phone. I'm done asking them to care. I went into the bridal room, opened my laptop, and started listing every financial connection between us. The $2,500 automatic transfer. The supplementary credit card. The household services charged to me. The emergency account they had gradually started treating like ordinary spending money. Every one of them was legally mine. Daniel stood beside me as I opened my banking app. "They just showed me what I mean to them," I said quietly. "I'm going to believe them." I started with the automatic transfer. $2,500, recurring monthly payment. Cancel. Then the supplementary credit card attached to my account. Freeze. Close. I removed my payment information from the household services. I had been covering and changed the passwords and security permissions on every account that belonged solely to me. I didn't touch a dollar that legally belonged to my parents. I simply stopped giving them access to mine. Daniel watched from beside me. "You sure?" I closed the final account screen. For the first time, yes. Then I put the laptop away and returned to my wedding reception. For the next 45 minutes, nothing happened. Daniel and I greeted guests. I took photographs with relatives who had actually come. Someone handed me a glass of champagne. Then my phone started vibrating. Dad. I declined it. Immediately. Mom. Then Evan. Then Dad again. My screen lit up with a message. What did you do? Another arrived seconds later. Call us immediately. I stared at those words. They hadn't called frantically when they realized they were missing my ceremony. They hadn't rushed back after hearing my voice shake. But 45 minutes after losing access to my money, suddenly everyone could find my number. Then another notification appeared. Transaction declined. I opened it. The attempted charge was from the resort where they were celebrating Evan. And it wasn't small. I frowned and opened previous statements. There were other charges I didn't recognize at first. Restaurants, travel expenses, purchases connected to places Evan had mentioned. I scrolled further. More. The pattern was impossible to ignore. Money I thought was keeping my parents comfortable had been moving through their lives in ways they had never explained to me. Tercy, Daniel said. I turned the screen toward him. His expression changed. My phone rang again. Mom. This time I answered. Mom. She didn't even let me finish. You can't cut us off. Evan is depending on that money. I went completely still. Not we're depending on it. Evan. What did you just say? Mom went silent. I stepped farther away from the reception doors while Daniel stayed beside me. Mom, you said Evan is depending on that money. I didn't mean it like that. Then explain what you meant. Dad's voice appeared in the background. Give me the phone. A second later, he was speaking. Tercy, you're upset. We understand that, but shutting everything down without warning is irresponsible. I actually looked at the phone. Irresponsible. I opened the statements again. I've been sending you $2,500 every month because you told me you needed it to live comfortably. Why am I seeing resort charges? Why am I seeing expenses connected to Evan? Dad didn't answer. Put Mom back on. Tercy. Put her back on. There was muffled conversation. Then Mom returned. Her voice had lost its anger. We've helped Evan occasionally. How much? He's starting a business. There are expenses. That wasn't my question. Silence. I looked through the glass doors at my reception. Daniel's parents were talking with guests. My aunt was fixing a centerpiece. People who owed me nothing had rearranged their lives to be there. Meanwhile, the two people receiving $30,000 a year from me had skipped my wedding to celebrate the person they were secretly helping with my money. So when you told me you needed $2,500 every month to live comfortably, I said, how much of it was actually going to Evan? Mom exhaled sharply. We weren't stealing from you. I never said stealing. I said you lied about why you needed it. Dad interrupted again. Family helps family. I almost laughed. That sentence. The same sentence they had used for years. Only now I finally understood that family meant my responsibility and help meant my money. Then Evan can start helping family. Mom's voice rose. You're going to punish your own parents over one missed event. One missed event. It's a wedding, Tercy. You have Daniel now. Evan's launch could affect his whole future. There it was. The answer I had spent the entire day trying to understand. They had made a choice. My wedding was one day. Evan's opportunity mattered more. And they had assumed that once I cried, got angry, and calmed down, the $2,500 would continue arriving like it always had. This isn't about one missed event, I said. It's about you treating my money like an obligation while treating me like I'm optional. Nobody answered. So I continued. The monthly transfers are over permanently. The supplementary card is closed. Anything in my name stays closed. You'll need to move the household expenses into your own names. Mom gasped, Tercy, we have bills. So do I. What are we supposed to do? Live within your income. Then I ended the call. Over the following days, I sent them the final statements and information they needed to transfer the household services. Nothing was left ambiguous. Mom tried telling relatives that I had suddenly abandoned them financially. That story didn't survive long. Too many people had been at my wedding. They had seen the empty chairs. Some had heard Mom say, Tercy has Daniel, she'll be fine. And they had seen the resort photographs for themselves. Without my money flowing through my parents, Evan had to reduce his business spending. The dinners, travel, and extras stopped being expenses someone else quietly absorbed. Dad eventually increased his working hours, while he and Mom reworked their budget. They weren't homeless. They weren't starving. They simply couldn't live as comfortably as they had when their daughter was subsidizing them. And for the first time, I didn't rush in to fix that discomfort. That evening, after I ended the call, I stood outside the reception room for a few seconds. Daniel held out his hand. Ready? I looked at my silenced phone. Then at him. Yeah. We walked back inside. The music started, and we had our first dance surrounded by people who had chosen to show up. In the months afterward, part of the $2,500 I used to send my parents went straight into savings for the life Daniel and I were building. I didn't completely cut my parents out of my life, but I removed money from our relationship permanently. If they wanted a relationship with me, it would have to be built through phone calls, visits, apologies, and changed behavior. Not automatic transfers. Not emergency cards. Not guilt. My parents missed my wedding because they thought I would always be the daughter who paid no matter how they treated me. They were wrong.